to this session. This is all about weaving nutrition and permaculture. And it's an idea that emerged out of conversation saying, this is just a natural fit. And where are the conversations globally happening with this? What are people doing? What are people doing in Africa? What are people doing in the Americas? What are people doing all around the world? And there was no real spot where we could find that information out. So this is really an opportunity for us to just be here together, to find out what's going on, to start to map that a little bit, and to share some inspirations of what we're all doing. So what we were thinking actually was, as we started organising, we started getting a little bit excited, thinking, wouldn't it be great if this was not just a one-off, but maybe a quarterly session? So we're not sitting here today delivering, a fixed thing to you. We are going to share some stories with you, some programs and ideas and projects that we're working on, which I think are fantastic. But we want to also, later on in the session, encourage you to nominate to be part of a panel for the next one, because everyone who's here has got amazing stories to share, and this is what this is about. So hopefully by the end of this session, we will have such an enormous conceptual map of what's going on in terms of what's going on in the world of permaculture and nutrition. So before I go any further, though, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of land on which I'm meeting with you today. I'm here on the land of the Gubbi Gubbi or Cubbi Cubbi people, and I'd like to pay respects to the elders past, present and emerging. And I also like to encourage you, if you are aware of the traditional custodians of land on which you're seated today and on which you live, work, play, love, to also acknowledge in the chat. I'm not sure if that's a tradition that you do in where you're from, but it's definitely something here in Australia that is a way that we always like to begin a session with that deep acknowledgement. So I would also like now to welcome you to introduce you to the people that we have here spotlighted. So I'll start with Elizabeth. So Elizabeth is I'm just pulling up my description here. So just to make sure I get it right for you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth is based in Wales, and she is co-founder of an organisation called Griffin, and she is an international public health nutrition specialist and a permaculturalist, and works a lot with food and farming and looking differently at how we can be addressing nutrition through our food system. We have Afshan, who's in my picture next to her. Afshan is based in Malawi, and she's an environmental land use designer and permaculturalist. She works with the Baylor Foundation and a maternal health program, and the project that she will share with us today will knock your socks off. I guarantee it. And below her in my picture is Stacia Nordin, and Stacia is based in Malawi also. She's been there for several decades, and she's she is the founder of Never Ending Food. So she's also a permaculturalist and a registered dietitian. So she's going to take us for a bit of a walk in her garden and talk about some of the materials that she's developed. And below me, down at the bottom of my screen, I don't know if it looks like that for you, but anyway, is Rolande. Oh, she's not there. Okay, so Rolande, give us a wave, Rolande. So Rolande is based in Nakivale Refugee Settlement. She is a coordinator of the Perma Youth Hub there, and she is also a permaculture teacher and coordinates a number of different activities throughout East Africa in the refugee settlement. She's a graduate of the Permaculture Education Institute, and she's also studying nutrition now. And she's the youngest member of our team here, and I'm so delighted to have everyone here joining me. And I'm Morag Gamble, and I am based here in Australia. I run something called the Permaculture Education Institute, and kind of a global permaculture ambassador working with permaculture around the world and teaching permaculture teachers on 6 continents. So welcome everyone who's joining us as we're going through. You can't believe how excited we are actually at the response that we've had to this. I set out 100 tickets and filled, and then I set 200 tickets and that filled, and I upped it to 300, and finally I sort of set it at 500 tickets, and that's how many people we've had registered for this. So it's really wonderful to see the interest in this topic. What we've got going on for you, we have a bit of a program set out for today. So firstly, in a few minutes, I'll open up a short video, which is a compilation of roughly 5 to 10 minutes from each of us here to talk about the type of projects and perspectives that we want to bring into this. And then after that, we're going to head off into some breakout rooms where we get a chance to explore what it is that people within this group who are here today are doing, and to respond, possibly to what you hear in the sessions, but also to bring forth the kind of things that you are doing. And we'll share with you at that point a Google Doc where you can actually take notes, and we'll be compiling these because, this is really the first time that this has been done, and we're really excited to capture as much of it we can to then obviously share back with you. We are recording this session. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that, so that we'd love you to have your face on the screen, but if you don't want it to be recorded, then feel free also to turn off your video. We're not going to be recording the breakout sessions because on Zoom, technically you can't actually record a whole lot of multiple sessions. So when you get your recording, you'll see this particular session and also the whole group discussion at the end. So just to say greetings to the people who weren't able to make it because of the time zones or other commitments. So welcome to everyone who's catching this later on as well. One thing I was going to mention too, that we've had people from 50 different countries joining this session. So that's phenomenal as well, from Afghanistan to Pakistan to Wales to Cuba to Thailand, Malaysia, Uganda, and Slovenia, the Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, Ireland, Italy, Japan, Jordan, Kenya. It goes on. It's massive. It's absolutely massive. So that's fantastic. So thank you once again for being here and being part of this session. So I'd like to explore in this beginning session a little bit about permaculture and its relationship to nutrition in the kind of broader ecological sense. So to begin with, what is permaculture? Well, permaculture is essentially a way of designing for one planet living. So essentially, how can we design and create sustainable human habitats that meet our needs at the same time as supporting the needs of life to thrive, all life. At the core of this is really about focusing on creating home gardens. So beautiful, edible, diverse home gardens that are living systems, that are great habitats for us, but also habitats for other species. And it's kind of radical in its simplicity in how we can address many of the challenges that we're facing in terms of nutrition, in terms of ecological damage, in terms of biodiversity loss, that we can do this based in our home gardens, our community gardens, our school gardens, really looking at this food security and food resilience at this local level. And this is where permaculture focuses so much energy. And essentially, it's about creating everyday access to good food that is freshly harvested, nutrient-dense, and because it's freshly harvested, it's full of vitality. And it's also really interesting that we can be growing, I suggest, 10 times as much food as we thought possible, simply by shifting about what we consider to be food, and also by considering eating all the different parts of the foods there. Why not eat all the flowers? Why not eat the pumpkin leaves and the sweet potato leaves and all the different parts of the plants? Because when we start to eat this, we're getting whole foods. We're getting much more of the plant and much more of the nutrient possibilities out of each plant. And also by allowing many of our plants in our gardens to go to flower, we're also creating habitat and food for other species. And it's very important too to be able to allow this full life cycle, because that's where we start to be able to get to collect our own seeds and then to share those seeds. And part of this too is about caring for the soil in which our seeds are going to be received. If we're using chemicals and exposing our soil to the elements, we're compacting it, or not adding organic matter, removing it, burning it, pulling out the roots. we're actually destroying our topsoil. A third of the global topsoil has been lost in 40 years. This picture in the top is actually something that I experienced when I was a teenager. The soil from the farming area of Victoria covering over the city, and I remember the city going completely dark. This was an awakening for me that something was wrong in our food system. So in order to care for us, when we care for our soil, we start to create much more alive soil. The soil is alive, the plants are healthier, and therefore we can become healthier too, because in a live soil there are billions of living things. And one of the key things that I find is absolutely essential to this is this last point, that within a spoon of soil that there is 13 kilometres of fungal filaments. Now these are these mycelial webs that are going out foraging for nutrients. So what they do is they connect onto the end of roots and go deeper and further into the soil, collecting nutrients and minerals and moisture and bringing them into the plants, putting composting all throughout the garden. So rather than having a compost over in one area and then having the garden elsewhere, all throughout the garden there's compost bins, worm farms, all different kinds of ways of taking the nutrients directly back into the soil. So you get these household cycles that happen from the nutrients that come out of the home that go straight back into the garden, into the soil, into the food system. And that includes integrating worm farms as well. So anything that is biodegradable that comes out of your home, your garden, your neighbourhood, even choosing to have cotton clothing, so when it's finished it can go back into the soil. And Stacia is going to talk about human manure later as well. And I think another very important thing to consider is looking at how we can garden not just in our own homes and around it or think about farms, but how we can take it to the commons, into community farms, into community gardens, so that we have the opportunity to learn from one another, to understand and to relearn some of the information that has been lost in the generations that have just gone. Part of what we're doing too is looking at creating a group of perma-youth, young people who have the capacity to be teachers and to share this information in the younger generation. And Rolande is with us today too, and she'll share a bit next about her work with perma-youth and Permaculture and Nutrition. She's been part of a program of young people who've been learning from Bemariki, who's here. Perma-youth is a program of the Permaculture Education Institute, and in this year alone, over 1,000 young people in refugee settlements have accessed permaculture education and the opportunity to start their own home gardens and be part of community garden projects. Sakina is one of the women who leads this program in Kakuma refugee settlement, and she says that this is actually the knowledge that we need for a future, for hope, and to build nutrition and health in her community. So I think this idea of cultivating the next generation eco-literacy is absolutely critical. And part of this, I mentioned before, Perma-Youth, but I wanted to mention a little bit more because Perma-Youth is a global community of teenagers focused on practical activism for regeneration, for eco-humanitarianism, for creativity, celebration, connection through permaculture. And this is definitely focused around cultivating a food culture. So some of the key things that we look at is really creating outrageous diversity so that our gardens are just bursting with life of local foods, of roots and shoots and fruits and herbs and spices and medicines, and soil food as well, and that this is done in cultivating layers. So it's not just a monoculture or not just a one layer of food, but there's many different layers. And a part of that too is really just focusing on how we can create more garden and less path, and packing as much as possible as we can into every single part of our gardens and our spaces. And the central part of that too is protecting the soil life. The more that we bring the soil alive, the more that we're going to be able to pack our gardens full of thriving and abundant food in this beautiful array of diversity. So I want to let you know quickly that if you check out the Permaculture Education Institute site, you'll find a whole lot of resources there, from masterclasses and courses. There's a blog where you can access hundreds of articles all about growing permaculture and different ways of using different plants. There's also a YouTube channel which I run called Our Permaculture Life, and again there's hundreds of films there that can help you to take first steps in your permaculture journey. And each of the speakers that's coming up next will be talking about different aspects of the way that they interact with permaculture and nutrition. So I hope you enjoy the remaining speakers as part of this session. Thanks for listening.
Hi, my name is Rolande, and I'm one of the presenters of today's webinar, Weaving Nutrition and Permaculture. Let's look a bit at who is Rolande. Rolande is a permaculture teacher and a perma-youth mentor in East Africa and a nutrition student. She's been traveling teaching permaculture and business skills to refugees and host communities, as well as foster carers and youth, all to be able to fight hunger and malnutrition that is rising into this part of our world, determined to make the world a better place for everyone to live in. That's why I do this volunteer job to help everyone. Let's look at what is food security and nutrition security. Food security is a situation in which all people at all times have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient and safe food for their survivals. This requires all food groups every day for everyone. In developed countries, food security is less of a problem, but but in developing countries, it is still the main problem. The nutritional security is the food security plus security of water, hygiene, sanitation, and healthy living for wellness and prevention of treatment diseases. Most people haven't understood this in most of the globe, even to the developed countries, so it's still a global problem. Food and nutrition in Nakivale refugee camp. Nakivale refugee camp is the camp where I live. Nakivale refugee camp is home to more than 132,000 refugees from different countries in the African continent who have experienced insecurity due to disaster and conflict in their home country, so they decide to leave and search for a better place to live. So problems that are triggering the nutritional states of refugees is due to unexpected and unwanted displacement. These people are facing trauma problems and skin diseases due to non-clean water and lack of hygiene, and mostly the malnutrition due to lack of enough food for the families. Most of us rely on monthly donations from UNHCR, which is $5 monthly per person, and which is totally not enough for a person to serve themselves for a whole month. Also, the camp is somehow desertic. There are not enough trees out there and very little rains throughout the year. There is not much rain for people to practice good agriculture. So we will need to implement permaculture principles and regenerate the camp. Impact of the lockdown. During the lockdown, we also got major problems. Due to the lockdown, even those who were making small business got stopped and the market was stopped. People are relying on the $5 monthly, which is totally impossible. So the risk of malnutrition to children and women and even everyone is really rising. The roads are closed, and people who were bringing materials from other places to the camp were also stopped. This is also one of the things that triggered the nutritional status of people because of stopping the movement into the country. Consequences then, as consequence to all these, is high rate of malnutrition in children, pregnant and breastfeeding women. These are the major groups of people to attract the malnutrition. But when you look at all people very well, people are really not in a good condition of nutrition here. Many refugees are taking the deadly decision of going back to their country. This, I call it a deadly decision because it's really deadly. People are taking the decision to go back to countries where there is wars, where they know that they won't sleep and wake up without hearing gunshots, without hearing people who are killed in the night, even during daytime. So it's really a deadly decision. The food security of refugees is threatened as well as the nutritional security on the high scale. So for the refugees, the nutrition security and the food security all are threatened. So it's like we are nowhere to be found into the two concepts. So the action taken for us, together with the Permaculture Education Institute and the Perma Youth, have been able to host trainings in Nakivale and other places in Uganda for refugees and host communities, which has been fruitful for the people that we thought. During this lockdown, the people that we thought have been helping themselves in getting food and whatever due to the skills that we taught them. We're helping women in setting kitchen gardens at their home to feed their families and improve the nutritional status of their children. Call for action. The nutritional status of people in refugee camp is at risk, and that's why we are calling for everyone around here to help us bring hope in this difficult situation. Thank you.
Hey there everyone, my name is Afshan Omar and I'm absolutely honored and thrilled to be part of today's webinar focused on weaving permaculture and nutrition together. The red building in this aerial image is a maternity waiting home situated in Lilongwe, Malawi, surrounded by numerous health services and a thriving regenerative garden based on permaculture design methods and principles. One of the primary focus was to connect human health to environmental health, and one of the methods we sought to do that was by focusing on nutrition within the health sphere, specifically expectant mothers, their guardians, and our staff. At the health center, the waiting home addresses 2 of the 3 delays connected to maternal mortalities: the decision to come to the waiting home and the delay associated with the time it takes to get to the hospital to receive adequate care. In addition, the integration of permaculture into the waiting home has been to holistically improve the patient's well-being while providing an inspirational space and connecting various aspects: nutrition, education, design, environment, conservation, and health. As mentioned, the primary focus is to improve the quality of lives of everyone, and accessing nutritious, diverse, healthier food is a right to everyone. When we refer to good health, what does this mean? This is directly connected to our quality of life, determined by health, well-being, happiness, and education that can all be achieved sustainably through permaculture design and principles. One way we are striving to do this at the health center is by providing a positive environment filled with multiple elements, such as a productive garden, ornamental gardens, education space, inspiration, renewable energy, green spaces to enhance mental well-being, and biodiversity. This results in a beautiful web of connections, or something that I like to refer to as a dream catcher, where all barriers are being overcome to achieve the goal of improved nutrition, health, and well-being for all. Permaculture promotes a solution and design-oriented approach, directly addressing needs. In this case, developing a dynamic working demonstration that has the potential to be scaled up to other facilities, but more importantly, connecting the importance of humans to their environment through food and other design principles within permaculture. Permaculture helps us understand and create harmonious integration of people to their landscapes. In this case, the need for improving health outcomes of pregnant women, respecting plant and animal systems, and connecting socioeconomic structures whilst understanding the needs within a healthcare setting. At At the health center, we are able to use permaculture as a teaching tool within multiple areas ranging from tree planting to compost making to fuel-efficient cook stoves, backyard design, indigenous plant knowledge, the balance between homeopathy and allopathy, and of course, nutrition. Being able to plant what is required daily while building soil health and knowledge is critical in improving one's quality of health. And at the health center, using multiple tools and demonstrations, this is exactly what we do. We are also nurturing future environmental stewards through multiple programs, including a community outreach program involving youth and an adolescent mothers program. Through permaculture, you are able to have the ability to design a secure future for families, lands, and culture. Here are some pictures from the work we do at the health center, engaging both women, their guardians, and youth in different interventions with the goal of improving our relationship to nature. Our twin tree program sees the women go home with 3 seedlings, a combination of bamboo, a fruit tree, and an indigenous tree they can plant and watch grow as their child grows, another avenue of stewardship. The birth of permaculture at the maternity waiting home was actually through the integration of nutrition using permaculture design. We focus on diversity as the primary ingredient in all of our meals at the health center, balancing out the food groups, seasonality, and what is growing in our garden, which includes some of the areas of the food systems. Women receive weekly workshops on various foods we prepare. In this case, they are learning about multiple edible herbs that can be used in food to change the flavor profile and bring excitement onto a plate. We aim to bring a balance on the plate, a combination of color and design to inspire all of our patients, their guardians, and our staff that cooking nutritious food and growing those ingredients is not difficult. While at the health center, patients and their guardians have full access to all of the ingredients in the garden, and when needed, are educated and oriented on how the ingredients can be prepared, moving away from methods that have become traditional and low in nutrition. Tying in local foods with seasonality and combating mindset has definitely been a learning experience for the entire team. However, cooking lunch and using what is available while meeting nutrition goals has become an exciting activity for our team. As alluded to earlier, we have an adolescent teen program that focuses on building the nutritional profile of pregnant girls to ensure that they are able to deliver healthier babies, reducing the risk of postpartum hemorrhaging and other dangerous outcomes. Patients and youth alike are constantly receiving education in various forms, but primarily through outdoor and experiential methods, which is shown to have a higher uptake. The youth have become our voices outside the health center and our advocates for permaculture design and how it can be used to integrate nutrition and combat issues of malnutrition being faced within communities. We do believe that the design approach permaculture uses, where certain zones determine the amount of input or work within the space, directly relate to how nutrition and permaculture can be woven together. Through community outreach, we are able to follow up with women that have received education at the health center to see whether or not initiatives being used. Moreover, we sometimes have groups of women and their families visiting us again for ingredients, seedlings, and sometimes even recipes. And with the spirit of permaculture, we always share excess, as we truly believe that this will address issues around food security and bring a whole different lens onto what nutritious food is and permaculture design. By integrating our patients directly into all of our activities and extending this to the wider communities, mindsets will change and barriers will be overcome. Knowledge and inspiration will continue within the health center with the primary goal of increasing access to nutritious foods and designing spaces to be able to inspire others. Thank you.
Hello everyone and welcome to Never Ending Food. I am going to show you how I got involved in permaculture nutrition through what I've been calling sustainable nutrition. This is our home. We welcome people to come and visit, or you can visit online. I want to show you a couple of books and posters and one thing in the garden. So we've written a book called Sustainable Nutrition Manual, and it comes in 3 parts. The first part talks about healthy humans, what we need to live healthy. So food is a big part of that. Also water, also energy. We need healthy air. Today we're going to focus on food and water. Then part 2 is about a healthy environment. And the healthy environment is what provides us with that food, with that water, with that air, all the things that we need to live if we take care of it. So this talks about how we can take care of the environment. It's very similar how our body stays healthy and how the environment stays healthy. And that for me is the connection between permaculture and nutrition. And I would love, by the end of these sessions, for more permaculturalists to deliberately help design for nutrition, and for nutritionists to understand what permaculture can do to provide all the things we need. And that takes us to part 3, which teaches us how to design our communities, our homes, our schools, to provide for sustainable nutrition. And I want to show you 2 posters. We're going to look at the human digestive system and how nature eats, how nature stays healthy. They're very, very similar. If we start with humans, when we put nutrients into our mouth, it's food that we put into our mouth, it's water, we also breathe air. We chew our food as the first action, and that starts to release the nutrients from the food. Our esophagus moves that food down to our stomach, and in our stomach is where there are smaller chemicals that help break that food down further into the nutrients so our body can actually use them. Most nutrients are absorbed here from our intestines, and they enter into our body. There are different proteins, carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals that enter through our intestines, and that's how we stay healthy, are active, and we rebuild our hair and our skin. Then there are things we don't need, and the body knows what we don't need, and it sends it out as manure and as urine. If we're doing permaculture, like we are here, I'm going to show you what happens to that manure and urine, and it enters back into our nature cycle. It grows food for us, and then enters into our mouth again. So let's look at the nature cycle. So food comes to us from plants and animals that we put into our mouth. So it starts here in use. Ourselves and our animals eat different things from nature. When we're done with things in nature, they enter back into the soil through death. They enter the soil in the same way that we chew our food. We have insects that break down that food to be able to feed the soil. Chewing the food isn't enough. The soil needs to also break it down with chemicals, and this is very much like our stomach. These are microorganisms. So the soil is breaking that food down further, and then through the roots are able to take up those nutrients so they can be used. So the roots are very much like our intestines in our body. Once these processes happen, chewing, breaking down chemically, and absorbing, then things can grow again. Plants and trees and fungi all grow so that animals, including people, can use them. And it's very important to have the sun, air, and rain to help these processes happen, to make sure they happen. The same as our body. We have to have air, we have to have water, and we have to have warmth. So on the table again, in front of you, you'll see what we use in Malawi as the 6 food groups. Now this 6 food groups is divided into the nutrients. So we don't have time to go through all of them today. What you see on the table is only about 100 foods. In Malawi we have 600 foods, and they're grouped into fruits, vegetables, and this should be about half your plate, half your diet. We have things high in protein, which either come from plants or animals. In some countries, this is one group, because people like me, we're vegetarians, and we can get all the nutrients we need just from plants. And then on this side, we have the fats and the staples, which give us a lot of our energy. in very simple terms. And water, very, very important for us to get all our water. And we can get all we need if we're designing our communities for that. I'd like to show you our composting toilet because that gives an example of how our manure and urine can go back to feed our environments to get the food we need. Welcome to our composting toilet. When we need to release manure or urine, we come into this toilet and it looks like any other modern toilet, but underneath there's just a bucket. There's many styles of composting toilets. This makes a compost pile with our manure. When we deposit our manure and urine, then we have just a mixture of leaves and soil here, and we take a scoop and we make sure it's fully covered. And you can see there's no insects. As long as you cover it, it's all fine. It doesn't smell. So then we take the bucket out and we process it out here. And once we finish our business, our hands have a little bit of dust on them. We just tip our tippy tap, which are becoming very popular. We use our soap. Of course, I would wash my hands for longer if I was in a real situation. And the water goes back into the plants because in permaculture, we don't waste anything. So now it's time to empty our bucket, and we would just come to these 3 bins. And this is the bin that we're filling right now. This bin was filled about 3 months ago, and it was full up here. It has about another month to sit. We let them sit for 4 months before taking them out. And this bin is just cover material. It's just leaves. So just like we did in the toilet, we'll cover the bucket. So we take the bucket here, make a little place to dump the bucket. Then we cover it. And then the bucket needs a little bit of a rinse. So we use a little tin of water. We have water right nearby. We wash out the buckets. And this is all the water we use, approximately once a week, sometimes twice a week. And then we dump the water into the compost and we cover it again. As long as you're covering each layer, there's no flies, there's no smell. Often people don't even know that they're sitting near our toilet. So if we live within the cycles of nature, we can have all the foods, all the medicines, all the energy that we need. And that, to me, is what permaculture nutrition is. And this is on a household scale. My colleagues will be telling you about what they've been doing. You can do this on a national scale. I'm looking forward to discussing this with you.
Hello everyone, my name is Elizabeth Westaway. I'm an international public health nutrition specialist and permaculturalist, and I'm co-founder and director of Growing Real Food for Nutrition CIC, which is a social enterprise usually referred to as Griffin. And it is learning how to grow, measure and promote the benefits of nutrient-dense food. I live in Swansea, in Wales, in the UK, and have worked in a number of countries in the global south, particularly within sub-Saharan Africa and Asia. I am very interested in using permaculture to create behaviour change in growers and citizens so that they look at the whole food system with a nutrition and health lens. This means that all of their decisions are prioritising nutrition and health, whether that's soil health, plant health, animal health, for nutrient-dense food, citizen health, or planetary health. Griffin is currently running a citizen science project with 50 growers and farmers as grower partners in the UK and with some in the global south, who are learning how to measure the nutrient density of their crops. Now, to do that, they're using this device. I will show it you here. This is a Brix refractometer, and it measures total dissolved solids. So, yes, it does measure sugar. It can measure complex sugars, also within the total dissolved solids are waxes, oils, vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients, amongst others. And the greater the total dissolved solids, the higher the Brix value. This is what you get by looking through the eyepiece. It's a numerical value. And the higher the Brix value, research indicates that crops have total resistance to pests and diseases, a greater yield of more uniform growth, longer shelf life, and better taste. So to understand what the Brix values mean, you have to look at a Brix table, which gives 4 categories of food quality, and those are poor, average, good, and excellent Brix values. So most of our growers in the UK are finding that their crops have poor or average Brix values, so they're a bit disappointed with that. However, we've got one grower in South Africa who is regularly producing crops with good and excellent Brix values. So that shows that it is possible. And what he's been doing, he's been restoring the health of his soil on the farm over the last several years. So what he's been doing is obviously working, because he's then getting higher Brix values reflected from the Brix refractometer. So Griffin's also collaborating with the Bionutrient Food Association in the USA, and it's doing some really exciting research on nutrient variation, as well as developing a bionutrient meter that uses spectroscopy to measure nutrient density in crops in real time. And research findings from their study show that nutrients vary greatly in crops. So, for example, polyphenols in carrots varied by 200 times between the lowest and the highest levels. And they found that the majority of their samples were clustering at the lower end, so had lower levels of polyphenols. They also found that levels of antioxidants and polyphenols in 6 food crops varied by variety and growing practice. So, for example, regenerative practices with no-till and continuous cover crops produce the highest levels of antioxidants and polyphenols, whereas crops produced from hydroponics and in greenhouses have the lowest levels. So what does all this mean? Well, it's likely that the majority of food that citizens are eating is not as nutrient dense as it could be. So what we need to do is set the bar of high food quality, and then we can start learning how to grow nutrient dense food and how to measure it to ensure that it is actually nutrient dense. So instead of resorting to fortification, biofortification, GMOs, and micronutrient sprinkles to get nutrients into and onto food and then into citizens, why don't we just start working with nature and grow food that is high quality, nutrient dense, and has multiple benefits for soils, biodiversity, climate change, as well as citizen health. So thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that session of provocations and inspiration from a number of different presenters around the world. Now is the time when we can actually head into breakout rooms to explore what it is that you're doing and also to reflect on what you've just heard. I'm just going to share my screen briefly again to show you. This is a document that we will share with you. Maybe someone who's one of the, oh, thank you. Afshan's just shared this with you. So we're going to spend 20 minutes now in small breakout groups. And down here, when you look at this document, you'll see there's this here, guidance on adding notes for your small group discussion. So we're asking that if each group could maybe select a note taker, and just to really don't have to take huge amounts of notes, but really to look at what are some of the key solutions that you know already, permaculture nutrition solutions that already exist, perhaps what are some of the challenges that you've noticed and that you've identified? Where are the gaps? Maybe some of the different sort of organizations or any links, projects that you know, so we can start to collect those. All the groups will be doing the same. And what we're doing is asking if you actually dive into this group. So when you look at the top of your breakout room, you'll see a number. So just head down to that number on your screen and start typing in here. All the groups will be working on this same one document. So you can see what others are doing, and this document will share with everyone at the end. Without anything more, you can chat with us in the chat if you're having an issue. All of us as facilitators will be floating around the groups too, making sure that if you need anything, that we're here and available. You can always leave the group. There's a little button down the bottom when you get into the breakout room that will say leave group, and you can come back to the main room if you need to, and we can put you in another group as well if you want to have a swap. So for the next 20 minutes, Maya, who's doing the tech, I'm just going to check with her across the table. She's good to go. All right. So what's going to happen if you've not been in a breakout room before in Zoom, all of a sudden you'll kind of get sucked into a void, and you'll think that you've fallen off the Zoom thing, but you haven't. You're just in the kind of the transition stage, and then you'll land in a room with a few other people, and from there you can start that conversation. If one of you can grab that document and start to type in, and like I said, if you need any help, just call out. So enjoy the conversation. I think this is where the richness of this session is going to come out. I look forward to seeing you either in a group or at the other end, where we can kind of bring all the different thoughts and ideas and questions together. All right. See you soon. Lovely to see you all again, and thank you for staying in the breakout rooms and having a conversation there, and contributing to the chat. We can see lots of comments that are starting to come through there, which is absolutely fantastic. So in this space, what I'd like to suggest is we have about 10 minutes to explore some of the threads that have emerged out of that. And this is what we're really trying to do, is sort of weave those threads together in this session, or at least begin to try to do that. What I would like to suggest that you do down below, if you can, there's this little button that you can press. It says reactions. And when you can do this, you can raise your hand like what I've just done, and it moves me to the corner, top corner. So I can see that you have something that you'd like to contribute. So that's down in the reactions button from down below. So I can lower my hand as well. So I'd like to invite you now to feel free to share some of the reflections of, it could be something that came up for you while you were listening to the presentations, the sharings of the stories. And there's two key threads that we were really asking you in this conversation. One was around what are some of those possibilities and solutions that exist that you know of, that you're working on, that you've seen, that you have resources of. And the other question was around the challenges and the gaps that you've seen. So I wonder whether anyone would like to just start with that. Oh, I can see Stacia's got her hand up. Go ahead, Stacia.
Is that okay?
Absolutely.
I meant to put it down. I was just asking, can I share my screen so people can see? Some people couldn't access this, the Google Doc. So it may be the first time they've seen it. That was it.
Okay, great. So just so that you know as well, that we will be sharing the Google Doc, the presentation afterwards, so you can see what's happening there. Great. So let's start with the first topic then, around what were some of the key things that came out of your groups that you're seeing as the main solutions that you're noticing around that are combining permaculture and nutrition. What are some of the projects that you're seeing that are really inspirational and already up and running and you'd like to share with other people? Stacia, do you want to stop sharing your screen now, or are you just going through that?
Well, we were going to go to the bottom and type what people say, but we
okay,
don't need
perfect.
to.
Awesome.
Yep.
So any comment really, we don't have to stay on a particular topic. Anything that came out of that discussion for you that you'd like to share, whether it be a key gap, a challenge, a problem, an opportunity, or something that you heard that was really inspirational. Paul, hiya Paul, lovely to see you.
All right, thanks for that, and good to see you too. Look, great evening, love it. The thing I got the most out of was the miracle fruit that Julie Wilson raised. So she's having problem raising miracle fruit from seed, and she's getting her seeds from the right place. She's using diggers, which is really good. It's heirloom seeds and that sort of thing, but here in Australia, but she's having a little trouble. And that sort of conversation, Ben Mariki then jumped into the conversation as well, and he went to explain something I thought was absolutely fantastic. And maybe you could explain it again, please, Ben Mariki, to the entire group. But he talked about miracle fruit really being a saviour for lactating women who are having problems with pregnancy. And I didn't even know it had those sort of effects. I knew it was a miracle in terms of flavour and all those sort of things, but I can't see you, Ben Mariki, but maybe if you're there, could you tell us a bit more about that story? No, he's not there. Anyway.
Oh, yes, he is here. Ben Mariki, if you could join us. I can see that he's here somewhere.
Hello?
Ben Mariki, yeah, could you tell us, translate that story again to us that you were talking about in our small group, please, about the miracle fruit and how it helps women, a particular woman you're referring to with lactation.
Thank you very much. I talked about moringa as a local tree. Also, it works in terms of nutrition as well as medicine. When teaching people, I do move across settlement and the host community. So when I was teaching in Chaka, I met a woman who could not wake up because her muscles were just weak. When I gave her seeds and just 2 seeds, she was okay. Now up to now, she used to use that. She does not use it. Again, when I was in Kampala, I met a woman called Namara Fiona. She spent almost more than 16 years taking pills medicine, which was called toriactin. So when I told her, stop using this, she stopped. Then she used, I only gave her 2 seeds of moringa. She used it. Then she came in the morning, she bear the witness. She had a strip of which before she could not get, before she could not breastfeed, and now she's breastfeeding. Even I'm from there right now. That's where I'm from. I'm heading to Nachivale refugee settlement. So the woman still gave me the same story, and even she have grown fat. I will share with Morag the video and the pictures. You will see. But the first video I can share with you here. I have it here. Everyone can just bear witness of what he or she have heard about it. So that's how we are using local herbs, and that's how permaculture is changing people's life in refugee settlement and the host community. So those are the few that I've noted, but there are so many people that permaculture have helped, especially for the course that we are offering across communities from one community to another. So where we are going, we are finding that moringa is curing some condition. On the other hand, another area, we find that in the other area, maratas is helping others. So we have diverse vegetables and herbs that are helping people. So many people still need to know about nutrition as well as permaculture. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben Mariki. It's wonderful to that you're here. I'm so glad that you are. Ben Mariki is doing incredible work with sharing permaculture throughout the refugee settlements in East Africa, and is actually the person who taught Rolande. So it's great to have you here. Thank you. I think also what would be really wonderful, Ben Mariki, if you could share the link to your entire YouTube channel, which has an enormous array of videos on all different kinds of things that would be really useful for people to see. I'd also like to encourage anyone else who has YouTube channels, podcasts, or blogs, anything that you think would be useful for other people to dive into, to add them into the chat as well. So then we can collect those as part of our documentation here. Beatrice, go ahead, please.
Hello, thank you very much. So for me, I just raised my hand because I wanted to share something, challenges about nutrition permaculture. So for me, I'm saying it on another view. So for me, permaculture is like a value added that should be added to nutrition, but it's not the full resolution. For me, I'm saying that if we like really to have a long-term resolution about nutrition, we should think about having projects or intervention that will take into consideration all the agricultural value chain. So the agricultural value chain is from access to land, having knowing the agriculture good practices, farming, having semences, having organic fertilizer, so having the markets where we're going to sell and increasing well-being in general. So I'm sharing this because I'm now an M&E officer of a project that is being implemented in 3 countries. The project is called Water for Virunga. It's a project that's work in many thematics, including agriculture, and we are focusing on permaculture as one of the resolution, so that the farmers or the community members can have really added value on nutrition, especially in terms of vegetables and fruits. So many things, so many people or farmers or local people in villages, they don't mind about taking fruit or taking vegetables. So it's really important to not teaching them on how the permaculture or garden are really important for their household and to increase their nutrition. So that's what I would like to share with you.
Thank you, Beatrice. And I think what you're saying too is it's the importance of having that whole systems approach, looking from the household to the commercial level, from nutrition to the plant systems to the soil systems, to really taking that bigger picture. And I think that's absolutely critical. Would someone else like to jump in?
Can I add something there before you go on?
Oh, yes, go ahead, Stacia.
I mean, permaculture is about sustainable design for everything that humans need. So it is a systems approach. That was one comment. And my second comment is in the chat, people are asking about sharing a lot more of these linkages. I'm gonna put in a plug for the high-low again as well. I'll click that into the chat. Thank you.
Okay, and we'll explain a little bit about the high-low just in a minute. I know we've only got a couple of minutes left, so I just wanted to make sure, was there anyone else who would like to speak up to share something about what you talked about in the group, whether it be the challenges or the opportunities that you see for further weaving together permaculture and nutrition? Jenny, go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, I just want to correct something in the notes from group 11, because it's, and thank you for putting those in for us, but it's northeast England where I am, not northwest England, but just because the conditions are different growing wise. And what else can I share? Yes, I think my passion, and several things. It's lovely to meet other people, albeit online, who have a passion for nutrition and food and permaculture, and moving away from old ideas and having novel ideas that they're passionate about, because one of my biggest challenges has been other people telling me how they think I should be doing stuff. And I just always ask them why. Whose idea was that? Was it made up by a human hundreds of years ago? Because actually I'd rather watch Mother Nature and listen to her. So that's one of the challenges I've found. But it's quite refreshing to find that more and more people are challenging the old ways and have new ideas and are passionate about them. One of my passions is to try and bring wild food to communities. It's a lot easier to grow wild food here than it is to grow cultivated food. And we do, even in the developed northeast of England, have food poverty on quite a grand scale. So I want to try and develop champions within the communities locally to learn about foraging wild food, and it's much more nutritious than cultivated food. How to find it, how to prepare it, how to store it. And I think we could go a long way to help to solve food poverty locally if we can do that. So there's a lot of work to do. I need to try and get council on board to stop spraying chemicals everywhere, to allow communities to let so-called weeds grow, because these are highly nutritious foodstuffs. There's actually probably 98% of my local weeds here are edible and valuable foodstuffs, whereas you don't have to pay anything for those, but we spend all our time trying to get rid of them rather than using them effectively. Anyway,
you,
that's
Jenny.
it really.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really important point. And I think wherever you are actually looking at wild foods, indigenous foods, and the nutrient density of those being such an important part. So we've got 2 more hands up, and I noticed that we've only got 2 minutes left. So I'm going to hand it to Lawrence, and then we can head over to Katrina and Aaron. Hello. Go ahead, Lawrence.
Okay, thank you very much. I think for me, I think permaculture is one of the opportunities for us to reduce on the inequality in the food system, because the biggest problem we have in Africa, and I think globally, is the existing agriculture system that largely focuses on the overabundance of the staple foods. But I think this approach will help us to reduce on the inequality in the food system and also increase the diversity of the food. But just for us here, I think the biggest challenge that we really face, as earlier discussed in group 2, the issue to do with the continuity of production of these, especially when it comes to the vegetables, the fruit trees, especially in the weather changes. We cannot be able to produce year in and year out or on and off season. This is one of the challenges that actually we need to be addressing. And then if we can't address it as quickly as possible, then maybe we also need to be looking at issues to do with access to water. Can we maybe look at the supply of water if it's a dry season? If you can look at the supply of water using the available technologies or new technologies that we can be looking at, so that we have water supply, easily accessible water source to everyone, especially in the rural areas. Like I had my brother talking about the refugee settlement in Nakivale, because I know so water may not be easily available, and not only in Nakivale, even in the other settlements in Uganda, and even other parts of the country. And also another thing that also stems from the overproduction when it is a season time. And we also need to be looking at things to do with processing. Here in Africa, actually in Uganda, is one of the challenges. You look at processing and storage. Yeah, people know how to grow the good food, they harvest the good food, but that handling bit, we also need to emphasize more of the handling so that we don't lose the nutrients. I think that's one of the things that most of our people do not know. After, as I told you, I work with care groups, with mothers, telling them how to grow these crops, and they grow them very well. But the issue here is handling, storage, and also the preparation bit of it, not the actual cooking, but how do we prepare them? How do we store them? it is one of the challenges, and I think this is one of the areas that we also need to include in our program in order for us to reduce on malnutrition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lawrence. That's a lot of really very important points, and I think that would be, like you're saying, important to follow up future conversations on these threads. Before we go on, I noticed that we are actually at the time that we said we would close, and I also see that there's hands up, and I don't want to close it off before. So I acknowledge if you need to go. Thank you so much for being here. That's okay. But if you'd like to stay on, I would love to give a chance for those who want to keep talking to be present. But before you do jump in with your questions, I did just want to make sure, perhaps Stacia, you could point to, pop in the chat, the high-low link, which is where we're going to stay in touch in between meetings. And also, so all you need to do is to click on this and just join, and then you'll get notification of events, anything that's coming up related to this topic. And it's also a place where you can drop in resources that you have, events that you're running, webinars that you know of that relate to this. And so it starts to become a collective place, a collective resource for us to be able to understand what's going on around the world with permaculture and nutrition. There is also a link that perhaps you could share as well, Stacia, if you wouldn't mind, which is if you would like to nominate yourself to be a presenter in a future one of these sessions, I've got a little form just as an expression of interest, just to send in, you know, who you are, what you talk about, what your organisation is, and then we can start to collate other panels. So this is not about anyone being, you know, like, you know, a leader, an expert, a boss in this. This is about us together being in a learning community, sharing what it is that we're working on and forming collective panels to do this. And so I think this is a really important part of the work. So in another few months, we'll have another session like this. Okay, so that said, I'd like to jump back over to Patrina or Aaron or both or baby.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for having us. One thing I think, since I've become, I guess, part of the permaculture world and learn more about permaculture is that within the society that we live within, we don't have the issues that they face in places like Uganda. We don't have the food shortage. We are so lucky in so many ways and so grateful. But I feel like one thing that this has really highlighted for me, even just listening tonight, but also what I've learned over the last few years, is that a real return to respect needs to happen for the food that we grow and for the opportunities that we have. And if we can bring, through our permaculture networks, through community gardens, through talking to your neighbor and, you know, bringing them into your garden and showing them what you're doing and introducing them to plants as if they're your friends, which they are, right? And bringing back that magic and that respect, and how much we'll start to see the land as not just something to be used, but something to be worked with, and to see ideas like Stacia had of, you know, recycling the water and not just turning a tap on and it's gone down the drain. And I think that within, that probably would have to be the first thing that comes to mind now after listening to so many people, is that we are so grateful and we should really make the most of it and really respect what we have. And just hats off to people in places where it's so much more difficult than what we have here, and we'll do our best on our end. But yeah, that is all I need to say.
Thank you, Patrina. Lovely to see you as well, Aaron and Patrina, and your beautiful baby.
Yay.
Thank you for being here. Anne-Marie, go ahead. Hi.
Hi. Hello. It's been very interesting listening to all the conversations. I was just thinking, I've been looking at permaculture and nutrition for a while now, and one of the links, or a couple of the links we haven't spoken about so much today, is around caring practices and having adequate care, which is one of the key factors for having a well-nourished population, is for mothers and other carers to be able to look after their children. And what I've found talking to a lot of farmers is that permaculture has helped women to remove a lot of the drudgery of work. And there's some clear links there with being able to breastfeed adequately, being able to have time to make complementary feeds. And the women I spoke to in Nepal, for example, I said, well, how has permaculture helped with the work that you have? And they would reel off a whole list of ways in which permaculture design has helped. For example, having water near the house saves them time. Having energy efficient stoves means that they haven't got to go so far to fetch fuels. They've grown fodder near the house, so they don't have to go on a great expedition to get fodder. So I think in addition to all the, growing nutritious food, etc., there are other aspects to look at with permaculture that could be improving nutrition, and particularly around women and women's time is definitely something to think about. And being able to breastfeed better and having more time to prepare complementary foods, etc., is a huge thing. It's not a small thing, it's a big thing. So that's a link to look out for. And in addition, there's the whole health links, so how permaculture improves people's health, as that's a major cause of malnutrition in addition to food problems. So I'll put in, if I can find it quick enough, a link to my study that I did with Himalayan permaculture, because there's a lot of links there. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the session.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. I'm so glad you could be here. And I would love it if you could share your research. That would be absolutely fantastic. And maybe you might nominate yourself to present at a future session. That would be so fantastic.
Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Bemareki, would you like to jump in again?
Well, thank you very much. I was just referring to why permaculture is for nutrition. Permaculture is the nutrition reason to my side, because for us, as it have been highlighted by my friends, and we are also adding to what have been said. In Africa, it's especially in a refugee camp, a child can't cry to have a bread, yet he didn't get even a maize corn. So to my side, we find that permaculture solves the issue of malnutrition, because since I've been here in refugee settlement for almost 15 years, I never received anything relating to the 3 types of food: go, grow, and grow. So what we do only get is energy giving food. We don't get protein, we don't get any other thing. So since refugees were taught how to have access to fresh food, and we came up with this because many children and women, pregnant especially, they are malnourished, and we have recorded many numbers with the request that even MTI, Medical Team International, have requested me to train their women and the children with malnutrition. So we discussed, the doctor told me, moreover, we are doctors. Medicine is not food. The best medicine is food. So these children who are standing and the women that we are giving supplementary feeding, which is the CSB, that's how they call it, supplementary breastfeeding. So we are giving to them, but if they have access to food, fresh food and full nutrient food, it can help them. So to my side, I find it useful, and if it can continue and we train more and more, we can end malnutrition in the refugee settlement. I think that's what I have.
Thank you, Bemariki, and thank you for all the work that you do. In this year alone, I think Bemariki has been responsible for training at least 500 people in permaculture design and helping to create an enormous amount of resilience, food resilience, nutrition, and livelihoods. So thank you for all the work that you do. What you do is really inspirational. So I would like to maybe ask if any of the presenters for today, was there anything else that you'd like to say as a closing remark, a reflection? Anything from you, Stacia, or Elizabeth, or Afshan, Rolande?
Completely inspiring, Morag. Everyone, thank you so much. Even though I'm here typing, I don't really need to, because we're going to put it all together. We're going to take the whole chat box and we're going to take the recording and try and get it into something. And I'm so excited to read the notes from your small groups. Thank you so much for participating, and I hope we continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacia. Elizabeth or Rolande or
yeah, thanks, Morag. Well, just a really big thank you to everyone who's joined this webinar today. You know, I think we've just been overwhelmed by the interest. And yeah, it's just been fantastic, the energy, you know, it's just been sort of buzzing. So we will certainly be enjoying reading all the comments, and this is just the start. So just really from all of us, really wanting to invite everyone and people you think would like to be part of this, to join this journey to improve nutrition and health globally through permaculture. So thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Afshan, did you want to jump in and say something quickly?
Yeah, no, just wanted to say thank you to everybody, and thanks for bringing us together today too. Definitely amazing to hear what's happening globally. I think there's always a strength and a power in knowing that everybody's going towards the same thing on a global level. And just on the challenges, something that came up quickly was, you know, the having to fight against, like I know in Malawi, and I'm sure Stacia will echo this, definitely having to fight against what the agricultural system is doing, you know, in terms of the foods that they're promoting, in terms of what's being grown. And I know that that's a definite struggle and challenge here with the communities and with the smallholder farmers, the households, anything that you want to talk to them, mention them as. So combating that mindset is a huge challenge, and if we can, you know, use this movement to kind of influence them, I think it would be incredible. So thank you.
Thank you, Afshan. And Rolande, I see you've got your video on. Would you like to just say a final word too?
Yeah, I'd like to say thanks to everyone that have come to this webinar. It has really been very beautiful than I imagined it to be. So thanks to everyone for making it the way it has come. And I also still welcome everyone for the future meetings or webinars that we'll be having all together, learning from each other and teaching each other. And I'm looking forward to learning from all of you. And yeah, I also want to be a great nutritionist and a great permaculturist in the future. And I really need the help of all of you to achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your dedication to it and the amazing work that you do. And thank you to all the presenters. Thank you to everyone who's here today, everyone who is going to watch this later on, who weren't able to be here at this time. Some great comments coming through now. Jenny was just saying what a wonderful resource there is in this group. And that's entirely the reason why we're doing this, because you know, you are all incredible, doing incredible things all around the world. And it's through the connections and the conversations that we have, bring this together, where the richness resides. So we will be sending you the recording of this. We will be sending you the notes and any of the links and the resources. Please make sure, if you want to stay in touch with this and to keep adding resources of your own, find out what's happening next, to join the Hilo. also, we will be able to, because when you signed up, you gave us your email. If it's okay with you, let me know if it's not. I will send you an email when the next one is going to happen, just so that you don't have to kind of find it on Facebook or something else. If you don't want that to happen, let me know and I'll take you off that list. That's absolutely fine as well. So wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. With that, we will close. And hey, actually, before we go, maybe, yeah, I'm just going to take a screenshot with everyone with a big smile and their big wavy hands. Hang on a tick. All right. There you go. Turn on your video if you can. Great. All right. 1, 2, 3. Bye. Beautiful. All right. Well, until next time, it's beautiful to see you all. Thank you again. Take care.
Nana.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.